She would rather give the lady her child. Yep. Pretty cool. Um, okay, so the land's at rest now. There's no war. What did Solomon? What did Solomon build for the Lord? Temple. Okay. Big, elaborate. I think it's 5 chapters on the temple. Uh, all the laborers, all the stuff that he put into it. It was very elaborate. And then dedicating the temple was very elaborate too. Solomon offers more sacrifices than could be counted. Has this long prayer. The festival lasts 14 days. So what was the warning God gave to Solomon? Again, same what David did, almost identical words. Yeah. Follow my laws. I'll bless you. Chapter 9 talks about all the cities that he rebuilds and fortifies, his navy, his shipbuilding. Who ends up visiting Solomon? Yeah. And Solomon, I guess, very impresses her more than what she expected. Answer all her questions. Great wealth. So it says that Solomon was the greatest and richest kingdom on earth at that time. So what was his downfall? Yeah, too many women. Too many foreign women. Yeah, so he ends up following their gods and going after their gods and stuff. So he gets a couple of, God raises up some adversaries against them, Hadad and Rezin, and they're getting hostile towards Israel. So who takes over after Solomon dies? Rehoboam, okay. And he gets counsel from the older man and the younger man. And what was the counsel about? What did the older man tell him to do? Yeah. And what did the younger man say? Yeah. Whip him into shape. Yeah, pretty much. So whose counsel does he take? Okay. So is there a lesson here we need to learn? Sarah, is there a lesson we need to learn here? Anyway. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. The modern versions of stuff. A lot of times they almost change the meaning of some of the passages by doing that. Very good point. So Rehoboam takes over. He counsels the younger man, tells him what to do, make the yoke harder, scourge him and whip him in shape. Um, so that basically starts a rebellion. Who stops Rehoboam from, he gathers his troops ready to go fight the rest of Israel. Who stops him? Yeah, God says, don't go fight. Right, right. So he doesn't, and then Jeroboam takes over that part of the 10 tribes, except Judah and Benjamin, the tribe. So what does it take? So what does he take so the people will not go to Jerusalem to make sacrifice? What does he make so he doesn't? People don't have to go to Jerusalem. Jeroboam. Yeah, Dan. The other one's in Dan. So he ends up building shrines, appointing priests that are from all sorts of people and not the Levites, and kind of Jeroboam went off the deep end, kind of. So that's where we ended up in chapter 12, and I think we finished the rest of this week, the rest of First Kings. So appreciate your comments. I didn't turn it off.
Two, can y'all hear me? You tweaking me back there? I like it. Probably easier for you to do that than me to move it up and down. Well, good evening, everybody. Um, Tonight we're covering the parable of the rich fool, lesson 10 in our book, and to either your satisfaction or disappointment. Not sure which. I do not have a PowerPoint. I'm just glad to be here and be with y'all. Um, and so I think we can get through it though. I don't think we have to have PowerPoint to make it work. Study the Bible. So this is the parable of the rich fool. All right. So how as we go into this parable, there have been some things that have come before this and some things that come after it that give it a little more context. And Jesus is addressing a lot of people in this period, um, or in this part of the text. And when it starts out, I'd actually forgotten how this started when it said someone in the crowd, because he was speaking to a lot of people there, came to him. So we're in verse 13, excuse me, Luke 12, verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And I'd forgotten in time that was how this parable started. And it, between reading that and reading the lesson and thinking about that, it kind of provoked some different thoughts in me of like, why do y'all think that this guy went to Jesus and said, "Hey, tell my brother to divide it up"? Why do y'all think that happened? Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. What else? Anybody else got any thoughts? Okay, maybe his brother wasn't sharing. I didn't think about that. Okay. Of course, we don't have a ton of context about the situation. We don't know if it's a deal that his father, the the father was still alive, and he's saying kind of like the um, parable of the prodigal son, where that's being divided while he's still alive. We don't know all that, but a lot of those kind of thoughts come through my mind, at least, of, you know, why did he do this? Like, obviously, but there's some kind of physical desire to have these things, because that's why he's asking for them. I would say, wouldn't y'all? I mean, you're not going to ask for something that you maybe don't want or don't care about, right? I mean, you're not going to go to that trouble. So it sets it up in a very physical thought process for this gentleman that has come and asked Jesus to do this. If see, would somebody mind just go ahead and reading 14 through 21 for us, and before we keep going, that way you don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. Thanks, Chris. So, as this question is posed, Jesus' response, this is again part of the part that I had forgotten about this until we had read it. Man, who made me a judge or arbitrator over you? What is, but in the end, what is Jesus, what is God going to be in the end? The judge. That kind of struck me when I read that, and I was like, it's interesting that this comes up. But why does he say that in this context? Why does he use that? Who made me the judge or arbitrator over you? So, one thing, I'm going to move this to the center here. That way I feel a little lopsided. That's right. Not the physical things, the spiritual things. And all of you think through all the decisions, or the things that I'm not going to say judge, but that he made definite statements throughout his lifetime. All of those things are pointing their spiritual life in the direction to get to heaven. Like, none of them have to do with what happens in this life as far as the physical gifts, blessings, monetary things, right? Um, so it was just a curious contrast that I thought to for it to be the physical things here versus the eternity. causes him to lead right into this parable, right? Um, so, and it continues on after that, and he said to them, "Take care, be on your guards against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist of the abundance of his possessions." To your point, Mr. Jim. Um, Covetousness, how many of y'all use that word in the last 5 years of your life? Yeah, that's what I thought. Um, okay, okay, that's fair. So, covetousness is greed. Anybody have anything else to kind of add to what that definition is or means? Envy, it's kind of a melting pot of all those things, right? So, take care and be on your guard against all covetousness. So, all of that greed, all of that envy, all of that look into what else somebody else has that you might or might not want. Like, you got to take you have to take care to make sure that that's not in part of your life, is what he comes out and tells them. And then he begins the parable. And it says, it begins the parable, the land of a rich man, it produced plentifully. So, what do we know right off the bat about this gentleman in the parable? He was well off at the very beginning, before any decisions are made. He was well off. Okay, what else? He was a farmer because he had land. Um, this one this whole deal kind of hits a little more home for me personally here. So, and when he has a bumper crop, what is the first thing he thinks about? What am I gonna do with this? So the the well, I've always wondered that too. Like, the other thing I thought about from a practical standpoint, it's like, I know how long it takes to build a barn, and there's no way that they're gonna get the barn built to store it. But anyway, um, when we go through this, as Chris read through it, what were the I don't even know. I guess pronouns. I don't know if that's the right word or not. What were the pronouns used throughout this parable? I, 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 I. I don't think we've covered. I think there's a few more, so we probably could keep going. And that's. I mean, yeah. I mean, what am I gonna do? I think I'm gonna build a bigger barn. Um. So, in this context of he's got this bountiful harvest, and it's clearly all about him and this conversation with himself, as Tim pointed out, that he never considers one moment beyond that harvest, right? Like, he just, okay, I'm gonna get this harvest, put it in the barn. I guess he does consider the fact that he thinks he's going to be wealthy forever, and he's got it made, right? Um, so starting off with a critical mistake of not planning for anything else besides just taking care of himself, he's set forever. Kind of like that thought of, man, if I hit the lottery, what's the common thought? You hit the lottery, you're set forever. That's the worldly mindset, right? So, um, the this rich man who's a farmer, and it takes how long to raise a crop, just in general. It it's a season, right? It's not something that happens overnight. It's not a Dow Jones doubling in a day type thing. It's a process, right? So when this process started, we don't we know that he was a wealthy man. It could have turned out any way that fate would have led it. But at what point did he stop being a good steward of what he had? So having no thought of God in this whole process, no thought of others in this whole process, no thought of the fact that his riches can be there at one minute and be gone the next. Right? That if somebody tells you that, hey, you got 24 hours and you got this much money and it's going to go poof at midnight, I mean, you can do a lot of different things with that. You could keep it all for yourself. It's kind of that same concept, right? And when that crop came in and that was all he thought about, that's when it hit he was on the outs at that point. So he's building a bigger, as Tim pointed out earlier. Does that mean, is it sinful to build a bigger barn? Not within itself, right? Okay. You can elaborate a little bit, Mr. Jim. That's right. Or it could have been wiped out that very night, or whatever. There's a lot of different things that could have happened. Um, that's right. That's right. And I hadn't thought about it in those exact terms, but that's spot on. Um, is it wrong for him? Let's say he's in the middle of the crop. We don't exactly know if he harvested this crop. Like I'm thinking about it, like I'm harvesting my crop on my combine, I put it on the truck, and I'm like, man, I gotta have somewhere to go with this. Like that's the way I kind of read it. But if you started earlier let's say in real life, we're like, okay, this looks like it's going to be a bumper crop. I got to build some grain bins or put up a barn or whatever. Is it sinful to plan for, if he was planning for that to happen? At what point does it become sinful in that plan? I don't know how to describe planning, future, selfish. Okay. He made that very clear, didn't he? And it goes back to what Chris said of like he put his faith in those riches and not in the Lord. Um, so you build this barn and you think you're going to have this crop coming in. Like how do we have the power to kind of carry out those plans? Um, how do we have the power? Because we all plan, right? We all, imagine everybody in here that whether you're going on vacation, whether you're planning for work, whether you're doing anything, you're making plans, right? How do you carry out those plans, build that barn per se, and how do we have that power to do that? How do we have um, that drive? What should drive us as Christians, I guess, to in that planning process. I may not have worded my question very well. Right. 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 Could depend on your perspective for sure, right? Sure. That's a very good point. And I thinking through, you think through those other characters that we read about throughout history in the Bible, the ones that fall under both categories are described as both, right? Or they're described as godly people, man after God's own heart. In your verses, that's a great point, Michael. Right. So, along with kind of pulling this all together, something that at reading this last verse in this section, Um, we know that he says he's going to have ample things saved up for himself, and then God said to him, "Fool, this night your soul will be required of you." And then those things, who will they be? To your point right there, Tim. But in verse 21, so is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. And it goes back to that root of that conversation. What is he putting his trust in? What is he laying up? Doesn't matter the fact that he's rich, because could a poor man be, could you substitute this and say a poor guy? Or, I mean, it's really anybody. It could be anybody, as far as the fact that that poor person could still be full of covetousness. And we know that God doesn't care about our money. He doesn't care about the wealth of this earth, right? He cares about what we are doing to help him, to help his kingdom, serving him. And in that last verse, whoever lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God, that tonight, when I was just kind of freshening up on the lesson, that struck me a little bit more. Of we always say that's where your riches have to be, but at the end of the day, is that what we're really striving for, right? Right. Yeah. So, kind of a personal question for y'all. Um, what are some ways that you either A, find yourself struggling with this, or B, or any part of this yourself, or B, how do you try to combat this throughout your just daily walk, right? Because it's something that could be, in this world we live in, very easy to let it just slip in, and before you know it, it's eating away at you, and you're farther down the road than you care to be. So, does anybody care to share either some tips or some watchouts or some things that y'all do, or um, something that you struggled with in this at one point in your life? Yeah, sure. agree. Hundred percent. 'There's nothing wrong with planting. Right. That something I didn't bring up that you did. Just saying that, Tim, was talking about the plant. Like, if, hey, if I want to save some of it, we're told that we need to kind of prepare for that, right? Like, we've got the parable of the 10 virgins. Like, oh, I burn it all up, burn all my oil up. What am I going to do now? You know, taking there's a lot of things in the Bible about preparation, but it's finding that fine line that we're comfortable with, that we are not being covetousness, not being covetous, but we're also preparing. So, um, good thoughts. Anybody got anything else before Thaddeus rings our bell on us? Hundred percent. 100%. Right. Yep. 100%. Well, thank y'all for your time tonight.
God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. Jesus is real. Jesus is real. Jesus is real. He's so real to me. He saves my soul. He saved my soul. He saved my soul, and He made me whole. I praise His name. I praise His name. I praise His name. He's so good to me.
Last summer, we got to take a trip to Hawaii, one we've been wanting to go for a long time. And I do like the beach and the ocean, but one of the things is I'm not really a big fan of getting in the ocean. I do like it, but I don't really like to get in it, but I do enjoy it. And so one of the things when you go to Hawaii that you have to do is you have to snorkel. And so I get out there and snorkel, but I'm very cautious when I'm out there. But one thing when you're snorkeling, you have to be careful. You might be going out farther than you realize. And so I made sure that I watched myself and stayed very cautious. So I'm probably in my family the most cautious person in that. A person in our family who's probably not the best swimmer of the family is Zach, who's probably way the other way. And when we would be out there, on the beach, he would be out there snorkeling, and I would tell him, man, I was like, he's drifting too far. He's getting too far. He's not paying attention. He's just having a good time with the snorkel on, looking under the water, and he'd be over here, over there, no care in the world. And several times he'd be getting out way too far, and I'm yelling for him to come back. But he was drifting, and so that got me thinking. It occurred to me that, something similar like that happens to us spiritually sometimes that has more tragic consequences. Have you ever watched someone walk away from God? A once devoted follower of Jesus who worships him passionately and now avoids speaking of him? It's a terrible thing, is it not? For the most part, people just don't get up one morning and say, I'm done. I'm not going to be a Christian anymore. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but generally that is not the case. But it happens another way more often. It happens by drifting. It begins slowly with a few tentative steps away from God. They're not noticeable at first, and maybe not even to the one taking them. They may not realize that they're drifting. If not checked, however, a believer finds himself so far away from the shore that he no longer has the strength or will to make it back. That's what the Bible has a warning like this for. In Hebrews chapter 2, verses 1 through 4 says, "For this reason, we must pay much closer attention to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away from it. For if the word spoken through angels proved audibility in every transgression and every disobedience received a just penalty, how will we escape it if we neglect so great a salvation? After it was the first spoken through the Lord, it was confirmed to us by those who heard. God also testifying with them both by signs and wonders and by various miracles and by gifts of the Holy Spirit according to his own will." Some Christians let their guard down. Not much, perhaps, and maybe no one else even knows. Just a little more relaxed attitude towards their sins that one time used to bother them. Maybe they start coming late to Bible class, or maybe they just miss one time. Slowly stop praying to God. Stop looking unto God. Does that ever describe you? must pay closer attention, the Bible warns, so that we do not drift away. Perhaps this passage should lead us today to conduct some sort of spiritual checkup for us. How's my relationship with Jesus? How's my spiritual life? How am I treating people? Is my worship spontaneous or sincere, or do I have a do not care attitude? You know, we all go through spiritual downtimes, of course, and being at a low point doesn't mean we've lost our faith. But it probably means we need to take a step back and take a look back towards God, pray to Him, and ask Him to turn our hearts towards Him again. The best time to stop a drift is as soon as it starts, before it gathers momentum. If you look around today and notice signs of distraction, turn back quickly. Don't let yourself get too far from shore, because it can be deadly. This is why I think our midweek Bible study is important. It gives us an opportunity to get a spiritual recharge and keeps us from drifting. There may be those here tonight who may have been drifting a little bit. You have an opportunity to get that back right by prayer. If you need the help of the congregation, we'd be more than happy to help you. There may be those who have not yet obeyed the gospel and not been baptized, forgiveness of their sins. You have the opportunity to do that. If we can help in any way, come as we stand and sing this song.
I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. No turning back, no turning back. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. No turning back.